So everything I said about the fifth episode really can apply to the sixth episode filter and then some. Really, a lot of good positive things came out of it. We are definitely moving the storyline forward. For those of you who may have thought things were going really slow with the kid, let me just jump right into the positives. First, this episode is all about the kid, Bill Skarsgard, and how he's just really grown acting wise in the series, but also from the character standpoint, from being the quiet, ominous presence to now a lot more talking, but more importantly, manipulating this entire episode. First, with Henry, the idea of Henry seeing the old video footage of Henry and his father back from years ago. Of course, that gets Henry out into the woods where he meets two very interesting characters, which I'm going to go to in a second because they're another positive. But it ends up with Henry starting to get himself in a position where he's remembering a lot of the things that happened all of those years ago and where potentially that's going to lead and what his potential connection is to the kid. So right off the bat, the kid already used old footage to manipulate Henry. Pangborn, he's using Pangborn's guilt over Ruth to manipulate him. He sends him on, to be honest, what seems like a wild goose chase for the car in which the kid was kept in the trunk of when Warden Lacey had him. To get that back. And we see very ominously that the kid is really now, as he says to Pangborn at the end of the episode, they're going to build a monument to Lacey, and they're going to build a monument to essentially to every person who put me in that cage, which again, I think raises a lot of questions. Is he somebody who's bad, or was he something that was made bad because he was locked up? Again, I don't know. We're left questioning whether Reverend Deaver was on the same page as Pangborn and Lacey, and whose side was good and whose side was bad, because again, I'll explain to the two characters that were really cool that were introduced this episode in a second why that casts some doubt. We see the way the kid manipulated the situation at the Juniper Hill Psychiatric Hospital. We hear it in the radio overhead about how there was a fire and inmates escaped. So of course the kid is loose, and even the way he played upon Ruth's issues, the idea of showing up in that suit outside the window and Ruth being able to recognize it with her husband. Again, it just was a situation where the kid is really now, he's out, he's about, and he's looking to take control of the situation. Whether that's good or not, and even what good means at this point, because remember, let's not forget, there is that fire, that wild storm that's still raging around. Again, introduction of two major characters, Odin Branch, Charles Jones, and Willie, Rory Culkin, I thought were great additions. I thought they were able to get some questions answered without just being that deus ex machina that just gives us way too many answers. So I thought they did a really great job of that. Very fascinating. I'm going to touch upon a certain con aspect about them in a few minutes, but just I really thought they did a great job in getting Henry's storyline moving forward, and the idea of Henry getting into that jacked up sensory deprivation chamber, I think is really going to be a good catalyst as we move to the remaining episodes, which is, I think, 4 episodes that are remaining. Rory Culkin as Willie, again, I got to say, really good presence there. Not a major role, but the way he interacts with Odin Branch, I think, is just really nice touch. Molly confessing that she essentially pulled the plug on Henry's dad was not what I was expecting. And I don't think Henry's appreciating enough how connected he and Molly are, or to be honest with you, Henry and I think is just starting to realize now how he's connected to a lot of things that are going on out here. The last thing I got to say as a pro, I love the concept of the schisma. This idea, and I know King always plays around with it, these certain vibe points where the possibilities of the past, the present, and the future kind of just get really congealed, and as they say, it's kind of the universe trying to straighten itself out, trying to get its S together, and at certain points, these things get heightened. Now, I do think that lends some credence to the idea of the whole Pennywise concept, but they do say that they're going for something original. And again, I'm still going with this idea of I don't think we should assume who's good and who's bad in these scenarios as this plays out. The two cons, which are minor, but I just want to state them. My Jackie Torrance, Jane Levy watch continues. I think she had a total of about 20 seconds in this episode. Again, I'm hoping we get more from her character as this season rolls along. Again, tons of potential. And also, I just got to say, as much as I love the character, Odin Branch, I say this lovingly as I think it's a nice little nod to Stephen King with that type of character name, but it's like Odin Branch. It's one of those situations where it's like you hit us over the head with 10 tons of symbolism in that regard. So, but otherwise, a fantastic episode. I want to make sure I get to some really wonderful quotes. There were a ton, but we were able to get them down to 5, I think. Yeah. When I look down at my hand, it was like it was your hand. And that's Molly saying that to Henry when she's saying to him, like, look, I did this to your father because I knew that's what you wanted. We were in sync that night. And then I can find my way out of the woods. That's Ruth explaining to Wendell, Henry's son, why she places the chess pieces in certain locations. It helps her keep her grounded. This place was his church. That's Odin explaining to Henry how his father just loved being out in the woods, and he was surprised that Henry didn't have his remains placed out in the woods. Not deaf, perfect. Again, that's Odin to Henry in a scene that, again, I think really is going to start opening up things for the remaining 4 episodes. And last but certainly not least, why would you leave me in that trunk, Sheriff? The kid to Sheriff Pangborn, as Sheriff Pangborn runs up the house to see what happened to Ruth. And we are left with 2 amazing cliffhangers this episode. We don't know what happened to Ruth. We see the panic in Pangborn's face. We also don't know what's going on with the kid, and that's all tied up in. And then we still have Henry in that deprivation chamber, and we don't even know what truths are coming back to him. So, again, a great episode across the board. Really looking forward to the remaining 4. Can't wait, and I'm glad it's been renewed for a second season.